So, as I was saying, the reason why we have such divergences in Kedusha and such recently developed halachic structures is because there's a very small amount of material in the Gemara about Kedusha. The second hakdama that I'd like to give, you can actually find in your source sheets, in source number 12. We'll jump around just a little bit tonight. I just want you to take a look at Seif Aleph in the Aruch HaShulchan of Siman Kuf Chaf Hey. And he just gives us a very important introduction about Kedusha during davening. He writes, the Aruch HaShulchan, that Gimel Kedushos Yesh B'Seder HaTefilah. There are 3 different prayers called Kedusha over the course of our morning davening. Kedushas Yotzer, Sha'anu Misaprim Eich Shahamalachim Mekadshim Shemo Yizborach. The first Kedusha is what's called Kedushas Yotzer. It's where we say the Trisagion, which is the Latin term for holy, 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 which is the Lord of hosts. Kadosh, 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 Pasuk in Yeshaya. Right? And that is what we say when we describe what is happening in Shamayim as we are beginning our davening. Chazal say in a couple of places that the Kriya Shema acts as the trigger for the Malachim to begin their recitation of Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. That's not a shiur for now. That's a fascinating discussion of the mechanics of the synchronization of the prayers of the Malachim and Shemayim with the prayers of human beings down below. We won't discuss that tonight. But what we are describing in the Birchas Kriya Shema and the Bracha of Yotzer is what's going on in Shemayim. We talk about the celestial bodies and we talk about the Malachim, and we say that at this moment, when we're about to say the Shema, the Malachim are saying Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. The third time that we say Kedusha, he says, is Kedusha Suvalit Siyam. He says, that's Niskana Mishum Limud, Kedisa Shilisota, the Yisbarbasim Kof Lamed Beis. He says, the third time we say Kedusha is at the end of davening in Uvalit Siyam, where again we say Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. This is known as Kedusha de Sidra. And the Gemara in Sota says that the world hangs on Kedusha de Sidra. Now, whether or not that's an exaggerative term or not is unclear, because when you learn the Gemara inside, it turns out that the reason why Chazal established or initiated Kedusha de Sidra was because of the slackers who come late to davening. And we want to give these guys who come late to davening some Torah study. We assume that they've probably missed the brachas of Kriya Shema. They may even have missed Shmona Esrei. But at least they catch something at the end of davening with the Torah content, with psukim, and so therefore we give them this final Kedusha that they can pick up at the end of davening. Okay? And there's more to it, obviously, than that. It has a greater signification, but it has to do with giving someone who's, let's say, not one of the not one of the first people at the minyan, someone who's probably less of an initiate than other people in the minyan, something to have to put under his belt to keep him going for the rest of the day. That's what Kedusha de Sidra is all about. But that's not the main Kedusha either. What is the main Kedusha? That's the second Kedusha that we say in davening. B'hakedusha ikarisi b'tfila shmona esrei b'birkas atah kadosh. That's the main Kedusha. Why? Why is that the main Kedusha? Because v'zehu shanachnu mekadshim shemo yizbarach. That's where we emulate the angels and not only describe what the angels are doing, but we actually sanctify Hashem keshem shemakdishim oso b'shmei marom. That we now will sanctify you, Hashem, in the same way that the angels sanctify you in heaven. So this is our declaration of Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. And this is therefore one of the climaxes of Tefillah, where we sanctify Hashem in an angelic fashion. And therefore, v'lachein anu mechuyavim lamod b'kedusha zu u'virgalim mechuvanos kemo b'tefillah mamish. And that's the reason why it's dafka in this Kedusha that we have to stand at attention with our feet together, just like we're davening Shmona Esrei, Masha'im came b'shnei Kedushos ha'acheros, which is unlike the other 2 times when we say Kedusha. Because the other 2 times are really secondary. One is depictive or descriptive of how the Malachim are saying Kedusha, and the other one is to give people who are the latecomers something to have to put under their belt for the day. right? But this is the main time when we're Mekadesh Shem Shemayim. When the Ikar HaKedusha Hayalenu Lomar Miyad Achar Shasiyim Hashatz Mechai HaMesim Kadosh Kadosh Kadosh. Now the truth of the matter is that as soon as the Shliach Tzibur finishes the bracha of Mechai HaMesim, logic would dictate that because what is the sanctification of Hashem's name? To say the pasuk, Kadosh, 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 Hashem Tzivakos, Meloch al Haaretz Kevodo. That is the statement of sanctification. Why then do we give it this preamble? Why do we give it Nekadesh Hashimcha or Nusach Sfard Nakdishach V'Naritzach? Why do we do that? Ela she'ein Kedusha below hazmana. Because you need to prepare yourself for this act of sanctification. V'lachein mikodem hashatz mazminosanu lomar kadosh. And that's why the Shliach Tzibur has to introduce the statement of Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh by saying, now let us sanctify Nekadesha Shimcha Ba'olam. We will now sanctify your name in this world, Kishem Shemakdishim Oso B'Shmei Marom, in the way that they sanctified in the heavenly realms. Kakasuva Yad Nevi'achad, this is written by your prophet Isaiah, V'Kara Ze'el Zev Yamar, that the angels call out to each other, and they say, and then we could chime in, now that we've been primed and prepared, now we chime in and we say Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. Okay? V'lozeh omer, mikodem nakdishach v'naritzach o nekadesh hashimcha, v'zehu hachana v'hazmana lomar kadosh, kamo shekodem omen yehi shmei rabba, shehu ikar hakadosh, omer hashatz kodem yiskadel v'yiskadeh, shehu gamken hachana v'hazmana. And the Aruch HaShulchan tells us, and this is not his own, this is other Achronim say this as well, that the words nekadesh or nakdishach are just like the first paragraph of Kaddish before we say Yehi Shmei Rabbah. The whole purpose of Kaddish is to get to that climactic statement of Yehi Shmei Rabbah Mevorach. But in order for us to prepare ourselves for that statement of Yehi Shmei Rabbah, we have to put ourselves in the proper mental state. And therefore the Shliach Tzibur primes us, he preps us by saying Yiskadel v'Yiskadei Shmei Rabbah, that may the great name be exalted and sanctified, in the same way that he's saying Nekadesh et Shimcha Ba'olam. Right? So you see, it's parallel. Now, because it's parallel, because the two are the same, then logic would dictate that just like we don't say altogether Yiskadel v'Yiskadei Shmei Rabbah, but rather we have the Shliach Tzibur say those words, and we only chime in when it's at that climax of Yehi Shmei Rabbah, then logic would dictate that the paragraph of Nekadesh or Nakdishach should not be said by the Tzibur, but rather we should chime in at Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. And so that's why I give you three questions as far as what the proper protocol is in the recitation of Kedusha. So that's really our starting point. So question number one is, should the Tzibur say Nekadesh or Na'aritzacha or Keser or Nakdishach? And it's fascinating the difference of minhagim, especially on Shabbos by Musaf. It's a totally different shiur, not for now. And if yes, we should say it together with the Shliach Tzibur. Why? And perhaps we should only say it quietly and not out loud. Number two, should the Tzibur, when we say Kedusha, should we only say the lines of Kadosh, 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 and Baruch Kavod Hashem Imikamo, which is the pasuk in Yechezkel, and Yimloch Hashem La'olam, Elokayach Tzion, as you listen, you know what's printed in the Siddur. You know, you have one line that says all, or kahal, and then it says chazan, shots. Kahal, shots. Kahal, shots. Or in the Art Scroll Siddur, chazan all, chazan all, chazan all. Now, is that really the protocol? Are we only supposed to say certain lines of the Kedusha, and the Shliach Tzibur says his lines, and then we only respond? Or are we supposed to follow along with the Shliach Tzibur and say all of Kedusha? Now be careful here. The reason why you have to be careful is because there should be some consistency between the weekday and Shabbos. If you only say Kadosh, 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 Hashem Tzivakos, and you don't say L'umasam Baruch Yomeru, then ask yourself the question, why you say Mimakomo on Shabbos by Musaf? If you don't say L'umasam Baruch Yomeru, because it says in the Siddur that that's the Chazan's line, then why do you say Mimakomo? Because you like gurgling as a Chazan, right? Oh, right? So you want to say Mimkomo to yourself and come up with your favorite niggin, right? But why? In other words, consistency, it doesn't seem to work. And or Mimkomcha or Shema Yisrael, right? Those are all the line that the Chazan is supposed to say. So what are you doing saying that stuff? Now, and how did it come to be that way? And then finally, should the Shliach Tzibur say Kadosh, Kadosh, and Baruch Kavod Hashem Mimkomo together with the Tzibur? Or does he say it after the Tzibur to give himself one more line to make a niggin out of on Shabbos afternoon? When I was growing up, it was always you said Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh together with the Tzibur. And then the guy started singing his Kivodo, whatever he was going to sing. But someone had a great idea. I can get an extra line of a song if I say Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh as a song too by myself. And that's the way it became. Right? So of course, the melody is very important. So if it's going to fit the melody, I got to add that line by myself and not say it together with the tzibur. So what's the imperative? Do I say it with the tzibur or do I not say it with the tzibur? Okay? Am I being? I don't mean to be overly cynical. I'm just saying that things develop this way because of what fits with the song, not so much what the halachic imperative is. Hopefully, we want to get clarity on what the halacha is, and then maybe we'll see what the right protocol is. And then later on, you can go over to the guy on Shabbos and say, I just learned in the Sugya Shiur that what you're doing is wrong. Anyway, let's take a look at the origin. Let's take a look at the origin of this halacha, which really starts in the Tshuvas Harash, but we'll see it. It starts in the Torah and in the Tshuvas Harash. Before then, it's a black hole. It's really a black hole. There's nothing in the Gemara about this. So the Torah says, "Ula'achar she'yisayim Baracha Sheniya," after the Shliach Tzibur finishes, this Siman Kuf Chafei is all about the Chazaras Hashat. It's all about the Chazan's repetition of the Amidah. So after the Chazan's repetition of the Amidah, Yomar Nakdishach v'naritzach v'yanu acharav Kedusha. Now just look at that language. It's a longer Siman in the Torah, but what does the language indicate to you? Who says Nakdishach v'naritzach? The Chazan, the Shliach Tzibur says that, and then when does the Tzibur chime in? Kedusha, Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. The word Kedusha actually means the line Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. It does not mean Naritzach v'Nakdishach. That's only the preamble. That's the preface. Take a look at the Beis Yosef. Beis Yosef in source number 2 says, "Ula'achar she'yisayim bracha shniya yomer Nakdishach v'Naritzach v'yanu acharav Kedusha." Nira midivrei Rabbeinu she'ein hatzibur omrim mi'im hachazan nakdishach. It seems from the words of our master, the Torah, that the tzibur should not say the words nakdishach together with the chazan. Elashoskin u'mechavnu l'masha shliach tzibur omer. But rather they should be silent and they should pay attention to what the Shatz is saying. U'cheshemagia l'kadosh az ya'anu v'yomru kadosh. And it's only when he gets to the words kadosh, kadosh, kadosh that we all chime in together. V'chein kasav harosh b'tshuva klal dalet simin yotes v'zel lashono. And this actually is what the Rosh, the father of the Torah, says as well. He writes, Dover pashahu she'ein lomar kadosh im hachazim. So the Rosh is talking first about Kaddish, not Kedusha. It's obvious, the Rosh says, that when the Shliach Tzibur is reciting Yiskadal v'Yiskadash, we're not supposed to be singing that with him. We're not supposed to let him say it. Okay? And Ki ein omrim Kaddish ela ba'asara. V'tzarech lohavin lachazin v'lanos amen acharav. Now, the line that you can only say it together with a minyan is a little bit mysterious, what the Rosh means by that. It sounds like that what he's saying is that if someone decides that he wants to sing together with the chazan, then he's ruining the effect of saying it together with the minyan. Now this will become clear in the other Achronim's language that we'll see later on, but in essence, there are two ways to have a communal prayer. One is for 10 people to say that prayer in unison, and the other way is for one person to say it in the presence of a minimum of 9 others. So if I'm going to start gurgling together with the chazan, I'm ruining it for myself and for everybody else. Okay? So you understand, that's not called with the minyan anymore. No one else can hear it, and I can't, and I'm not in the presence of the minyan now anymore because I'm not, it's a shliach tzibur, has to be one person in the presence of a tzibur. It can't be more than one person in the presence of a tzibur. Now, Kemochein b'kedusha omer, so that's what he starts off by saying. He talks about Kaddish. This, by the way, should raise questions as far as how we can say Kaddish in unison. Okay? And it should raise questions, raise a red flag, how we're allowed to do this. Or how we can have a choir, exactly. And Kemochein b'kedusha omer hachazan nakdishach v'na'aritzach. Similarly, in Kedusha, the Chazan says nakdishach v'na'aritzach ad shemagia lekadosh, until he gets to kadosh, va'az onin hatzibur kadosh ad kan l'shana. That's the end of the Rush. Continues the Beit Yosef. He says v'nira dechein yesh lasos k'shaomer hachazan l'umosam mishabechim. And the same thing should be when the Chazan, after we finish the pasuk of kadosh kadosh kadosh, only the Chazan should say the line of l'umasam mishabechim v'omerim. Shoskin. Everyone should be quiet during that line. Ad shemagia lebaruch kavod Hashem mikolmo. V'az heim onim, and then we chime in again. Baruch kavod Hashem mikolmo. V'chein kishomer v'devrei kodshecha. And similarly, when the Chazan line is v'devrei kodshecha kosuv leimor, shoskin. That's, everyone should be quiet. Ad shemagia leyimloch Hashem, and then only for yimloch Hashem should everyone say it in unison. The Oz onim, and then everyone answers. Now this is exactly the way most Sidurim have it structured. This is exactly the way most Sidurim have it printed, exactly like the Beis Yosef. However, there's a big however here. The Yesh Lidchos. However, says the Beit Yosef, we can say that that's not necessarily what the Rush had in mind. He says, the lo mi'et harash shelo yomru im hachazan elanakdishach v'naritzach. Because it's altogether possible that the Rush never meant that we should be silent during the lines of L'umasam Baruch Yomeru and Uvedivrei Kadshecha Kasuv Leimor. Maybe he only wants us to be silent for the very first part of Kedusha, which is the preamble to Kaddish, which is the Nakdishach v'Naritzach, Shehu Kamo Yiskadel v'Yiskadesh, Shein Omer Oso El Shliach Tzibur B'Shem Kol HaTzibur Ad Shemagia L'Kadosh. Maybe that's all that's required. But the Az Yanu Kol HaTzibur V'Lu Umasam Mishabechim Uvedivrei Kadshecha Shapir Dami Shemer Oso HaTzibur. But perhaps from the Rush, maybe the Rush would hold that the Tzibur could say L'umasam Baruch Yomeru and Uvedivrei Kadshecha Kasuv Leimor. But concludes the Beis Yosef, Harishon Nira Yoter. The first version of my interpretation, that the Tzibur is silent every other line, makes more sense to me. The Ramah, in his Darchei Moshe, concurs with the first opinion of the Beit Yosef. And that's precisely the reason why all of our Sidurim have it according to the first opinion, the Beit Yosef, and like the Darchei Moshe.
Based on what the Rabbi said before, that maybe Tfilat Tzibur, it's when one is saying in presence of other nine,
yeah. So
maybe Chazarat HaShatz will be more important than Tfilat HaLachash. Maybe when we are all saying Tfilat HaLachash by ourselves, this is like Tfilat Yechid.
Okay, that's something that's actually undertaken. I don't remember exactly all the details, but I know the Mishnah Berurah does discuss this. He says that as long as you start Shmona Esrei together, that counts as a Tefillah B'Tzibur. But it could be that you're right in the sense of Tfilat Tzibur. It may be more Tziburi to have Chazarat HaShatz. But you remember, that's not the only criterion for a Tfilah to be Chashuv. There are other criteria. For Tfilah to be Chashuv, it has to be B'Kavanah. There's certainly invariably going to be more kavanah when a person is davening by himself than when he's listening to the shliach tzibur. But it could be from that criterion of tefillah b'tzibur. Maybe you're right. I don't know.
Rabbi?
Yeah.
Why don't we follow this then?
Wait a minute. We just started this shiur. So let's take a look at number 4. Let's look at the Shulchan Aruch Paskins. The Shulchan Aruch says in Sif Aleph and Sin Kuf Chaf Hey, Ein hatzibur omer min shatz nakdishach. It's codified in Shulchan Aruch as well. Ela shoskin u'mechavnin l'masha shatz omer ad shemagia l'kedusha va'oz onim hatzibur kadosh. And everyone's supposed to be silent. Let the shliach tzibur have his solo with nakdishach. And then we only chime in when it's time for kadosh, kadosh, kadosh. It's right there, black and white in the Shulchan Aruch. Okay, now we're going to start the Mishnah Berurah, and we'll just see what the Mishnah Berurah starts us off with. Ein hatzibur v'chulei. So the tzibur does not start, and Mishnah Berurah tells us the reason, as is based in the Beis Yosef. Hatam deniskan shashatz yomrena bishvil hakahal v'yesh shlucham. The reason is the Shatz is saying it on behalf of the entire congregation, and he's our proxy to introduce the Kedusha. V'cheshigam hatzibur omrim oso eich yikarei hashatz shlucham. If we're all going to say it with him, then how can he be called our shaliach? V'chein b'kadish yesh li zaher shelo lomar im hachazan yiskadol yiskadash ad amen yehesh meirav. You have to be careful with Kaddish as well. So he's really just reiterating the Beis Yosef. Now we're going to skip the Bir Halacha for a moment. That's the Mishnah Berurah also. We're going to skip 6 and 7. I want you to take a look. We're going to look at a Taz in Shulchan Aruch. But before we can understand the Taz, we have to look at a section of Shulchan Aruch in Siman Kuf Tes. In Siman Kuf Tes, the Shulchan Aruch is discussing a situation where a person comes late to shul, and when he's ready to begin his Shemona Esrei, his silent Shemona Esrei, the Shliach Tzibor is about to begin the Chazan's repetition of the Shemona Esrei, the Chazaras Hashatz. So what's the protocol? The protocol is in that circumstance, when there is no other alternative, then the best eitzah, because you came late, so the best eitzah is you begin your silent Shemona Esrei together with the Shliach Tzibor's Chazaras Hashatz, and you say together with him word for word. You're probably familiar with this halacha. This is something that's pretty basic, that most people are aware of, that when you come late, you should start your Shemona Esrei together with the Shliach Tzibor's Chazaras Hashatz. I try not to rely on this. It happens to me once, maybe every year, twice every year, but it's not pleasant, especially since I'm in the front of the shul, if I have to do this, so I try to make sure it never happens. But in any event, so take a look at what the Shulchan Aruch writes. Im matchil hitpalel im shatz. If you're beginning to say your Shemona Esrei with the Shliach Tzibor, kesheyagia im shatz lenakdishach, then when the Shliach Tzibor gets to Kedusha, so what are you supposed to do? Yomar imo mila b'mila kol ha-Kedusha kamo shehu omer. Then you should say word for word with the Shliach Tzibor the exact words that he is saying. You obviously say them silently, as he is saying them out loud. We skip to the Ramah, and the Ramah says, "Aval lechatchila lo yatchil ad achar shomer kedusha vehakel hakadosh, ela she'im hutzrach lahasla mikach shasha overes kedlismachu l'tfila dina hachi." The Ramah says that this is not an optimal situation. It's really not optimal to begin Shemona Esrei with the Shliach Tzibor. It's better to wait for him to finish saying Kedusha before you begin your Shemona Esrei. But let's say you've already finished Goal Yisrael, then, you got no choice, and you got to start with him. So that's how you got to this predicament in the first place. Take a look at the Taz now. The Taz, we're going back to source, it's source number 9, and the Taz is back in Siman Kuf Chav Hey. And the Taz is going to ask the following question. You just got through telling me that you're not supposed to say Nakdishach together with the Shliach Tzibor. So where is this now being posed? Now, where's the Taz going to pose a problem with from Siman Kuf Tes? You're starting to get a clue where the Taz is going to come from now? He says, take a look. He says, BAYT Yosef mishum shuvas harash kosav atam ki efsher kedusha ela biyud v'chein b'kadish. He says because otherwise it's not called Kedusha with a minion if everyone's going to be chiming in on their own. Because of Beis Yosef and Nira Dekain Yesh Lasos Kishomer Hachazan Lumosam Shabachim V'Omrim Shoskan Ad Shemagila Lebarach Kavod Hashem Imekomo V'Azein Omrim V'Chein Kishomer V'Devrei Kachcha Shoskan Ad Shemagila Yimloch. Okay, he's just reiterating the Beis Yosef. Now comes the Taz's question. He says V'Koshali Mimashikosav B'Simin Kuf Tes. So the Taz says, I don't understand. If you're not allowed to say word for word together, because otherwise it's not a communal prayer, because by my saying it with the shots, he's no longer representing me as part of the group of the minyan, then why is it mandated in Shulchan Aruch that I say it word for word together with him? So we must conclude that is not the case. That if indeed I have a chazan who's representing the tzibor as the shliach tzibor, and I'm saying the words together with him, then I am not spoiling the Tefillah B'tzibur effect. And I still am accomplishing a communal prayer even while I am saying the words together with him. V'nirali de'en chiluk b'zeh beinim hispalel kavar olo. And it would therefore seem to me that it makes no difference whether you've already davened and he's saying Kedusha for you after at Chazaras Hashatz, or whether this is your Shema Esrei. The Taz says, I don't see a svara to be machale. The kol shekain b'masha hosef beis Yosef le'inyan le'umasam mishabachim. Eini yodeya hezek bazeh. I see no reason. I see no damage. I see nothing. You're not ruining anything. If you say the words of Divrei Kodshecha Kasuv Leimor together with the Shliach Tzibur, what's the big deal? It's not like it's a davar shebikdusha. It's not like it's a tefillah b'tzibur necessary kind of prayer. It just says Divrei Kodshecha Kasuv Leimor, and in their holy writings it says as follows. So what's the big deal? Like, what's that, why is that so important that he should, I don't understand, says the Taz, why a pasuk in Tehillim should have to have that kind of introduction of only the Shliach Tzibur. So anyway, V'kein Kosav Ramos in Chavtes, the Mineg HaPashta Afila Yachid Omer Seder Kedusha Shebiyotzer, and furthermore, we know that the Kedusha that we say in the Kriya Shema is said by a private individual. You don't have to be part of a minyan. V'cheinu v'divrei Kodshecha Kasuv Leimor, Ma Yisr Yesh Liyachid Lomer Dover Zeh Shenasaper Masha Kasuv B'Pasuk. You're just relating what's written in the pasuk. So the Taz says, I see no reason why we as individuals cannot join together with the Shliach Tzibur and recite those words, those paragraphs in between. And therefore, for the Taz, it's perfectly fine to say Nekadesh, it's perfectly fine to say Lu'umasam Baruch Yomeru, and it's perfectly fine to say U'v'divrei Kodshecha Kasuv Leimor. So if a person was to paskin like the Taz, then it would be okay for him to say, to himself, Mimakomo, and all the other things. Because we're not only suggesting that you can say Mimakomo to yourself, but you can actually say it together with the Shliach Tzibur. Okay, let's take a look at the Magen Avram, jumping back to Siman Kuf Tes. The Magen Avram had made a statement. The Magen Avram had said, the Ramah rather had said, that Lichatchila you should not start your silent Shemona Esrei at the same time that the Shliach Tzibur is starting his Chazaras Hashatz. And the Magen Avram explains why. He says, Tzarach lishtok v'lishmoa. Because you have to be quiet and listen to the Shliach Tzibur when he's saying Kedusha. Comes along the Levush Esrad, which is one of the commentaries in the Shulchan Aruch, in source number 11, and he says, Rochel, he says, Nusach nekadesh akadosh tzarach lishmoa mehashatz. He says, you're supposed to hear Kedusha from the Shliach Tzibur. You're not supposed to say it yourself. And by starting Shemona Esrei together with the Shliach Tzibur's Chazaras Hashatz, you're actually forcing yourself to say it instead of listening to it. V'zeh yitzarech la'omro ba'atzmo im hashatz, u'lefi ma shenishtar revata haminik ba'ashkenazim. He says, but based upon the current custom among Ashkenazim, sha'omrim hatzibur nekadesh im hashatz, that today the custom has become that we all say nekadesh together with the Shliach Tzibur. He says, "Im kein mutter gam lechatchila lahaskil lehispalel im hashatz." Then, according to that minhag, there's no problem lechatchila even starting Shemona Esrei together with the Shliach Tzibur, and that's actually seems to be a predominant minhag that there's really no problem starting your silent Shemona Esrei when you come late to align it with the beginning of the Chazaras Hashatz. Now, but you understand what he's saying is that since we're not makpid on this imperative that was suggested by the BAYT Yosef, that in order for there to be the preservation of the Tefillah B'tzibur, you got to have one Shliach Tzibur and everyone else listening. We don't require that. It's okay as long as we're in a communal setting for us all to say it together with the Shliach Tzibur. Then it's also okay to begin your silent Shemona Esrei together with the Chazaras Hashatz. You with me so far? That's what the Levush Esrad wants to argue. So now, now the question is, okay, now let's work our way backwards. How did this minhag in Ashkenaz get started in the first place? By what right did we take liberties to allow people to start singing together with the Shliach Tzibur Nekadesh or Nakdishah? Where did this come from? So he says, "U'minhag zeh ki meduma shenishtar vev al pi divrei haturei zahav siman kov chavei." It seems to me that it got started because of what the Taz wrote. The Taz said it in the 16th century, 17th century, whenever the 16th, 17th century when the Taz lived. And therefore, it seems to me that from the times of the Taz, people understood that it's not a big deal to say the words together with the Shliach Tzibur. But he says, I don't understand the Taz. It's a little bit circular. He says, Shehu maybe Raya Mikan, Barikan Davka B'diavad V'lo L'chatchila V'chein Hiksha Prima Gadam V'tzarach Irin Iyun B'minhag Zeh. The whole thing is circular. He says, how did people in Ashkenaz begin to take liberties with this minhag in the first place? Because they looked in the Taz. What was the Taz's raya that it's okay to say word for word with the Shliach Tzibor? Based upon the halach and Siman Kuftes. Kuftes, according to the Ramah, is not a lechatchil, it's only a b'diavad. When you get stuck. So how can you take a b'diavad situation and not turn it into a lechatchila? That's what the Levushei Sred says. I don't understand. I don't understand how the Taz could look at our Siman and the Siman Kuftes, which is talking about a guy who comes late to davening and has no choice because he's got to be masmich gula l'tfila, and the Ramah explicitly said this is not a lichatchila because I want you to hear Kedusha from the Shlich Tzibor, not have to say word for word together with him. How did that become now a lichatchila situation? Lichatchila, you're allowed to recite the words together with the Shliach Tzibor. That's the Levushei Srad's question on the Taz. And he says that the Prima Gadim's question as well.
Would we delineate between a time when the Shliach Tzibor was Takeh Motzi the Tzibor as opposed to today, Bisman Hazeh?
No, I haven't seen that delineation. It's a good point. Perhaps one could make that argument that maybe, but when it comes to Kedusha, I don't think that you can make that distinction. Because we don't say Kedusha in our private Shemona Esrei. The Kedusha is only said once in Shemona Esrei. It's only said. Maybe you could make that argument for other parts of davening. So, even though really the Shulchan Aruch says that you have to be listening attentively to each and every word, and now we do ya, lie, and we got all of the singing and all of the other chazarai that's going on during Chazaras Hashat. So you want to be malabit schus on the current minute. So you can say, because we already daven our private Shemona Esrei, we're not really being Yotze. But this is Kedusha. There's only one Kedusha. Okay, take a look now. Let's go back to the Aruch HaShulchan and see the Aruch HaShulchan is going to be Malamed Zchus on the Minhag. In Sif Beis now of the Aruch HaShulchan in Siman Kuf Chaf Hey. So first he quotes the Beis Yosef as everyone had said before. And he says, after citing the Minhag of the Beit Yosef that everyone has to be silent for Nekadesh or Nakdishach, go to the fourth line in the Aruch HaShulchan. He says, "V'chein yesh adayin b'mixas mekomos haminakei." He says there are a few places around that still practice like the Beit Yosef, that everyone's silent during Nakdishach. However, avol b'chol medinoseinu omrim hatzibur gam ke Nakdishach o nekadesh ve'in kepeda bazeh. But the minhag in most places in Europe by the time of the Aruch HaShulchan, which is late 19th century, everyone in shul is saying Nekadesh or Nakdishach. Okay? And Vanachnu Kulanu, Mazminim Atzmeinu L'Kedusha. And the reason is, he says, is that even though the original intent was that there should be one person calling us to action, get ready, Chaver, we're going to sanctify Hashem's name, is everybody ready? That's really what Nekadesh is all about. He says, you know what we do today? Let's get ready to say Kadosh. That's what we're doing. Instead of one person leading the charge, right? Jews like to do things themselves, so we're all going to go together and say, let's now get ready to say Kedusha. That's what's changed. That's what's changed over the course of the centuries. But if you're going to start saying Nekadesh, then be consistent. And say Lu'umasam Baruch Yomeru, and say V'divrei Kadshecha Kasuv Lemor also. And we don't do that. That's not our minhag. We just say Nekadesh, and we let the Shliach Tzibor say U'v'divrei Kadshecha Kasuv Lemor. V'yesh Lomar Dirak Kodem HaKedusha Anu Mazminim Atzmeinu. So what are you going to argue? Almost like the opposite of what the Beit Yosef's second pshat was. He says maybe we only need to prep ourselves communally for the paragraph of Nekadesh. But for the rest of Kedusha, we don't need to interrupt our prayers any further, and we'll let the Shliach Tzibur prep us for those minor verses of, Baruch Kavod Hashem Mikomo and Yimloch Hashem La'olam Elokayach Tziyum Ador V'Ador Hallelujah. We'll skip the brackets for now. Now let's go back to the Bir Halacha. Let's go to the Bir Halacha for just a moment. And the Bir Halacha is the Mishnah Berurah, but he goes into deeper analysis. It's numbers 6 and 7. There are two important Bir Halachas in Siman Kuf Chav Hey. First, the first Bir Halacha quotes the Rav Shulchan Aruch, who also addresses this issue of everyone saying it together. He says, "V'Shulchan Aruch shel Hagraz," that's the Rav Shulchan Aruch, that's the first Lubavitcher Rebbe. Kasav dahani mila liyachid shirotza lomer nekadesh. He says the only objection of a person saying the nekadesh together with the shots is only if he's one guy. Everyone else is quiet, and this guy wants to chime in together with the shliach tzibur. That's where the Beis Yosef objects to a person chiming in. However, aval im kol hakahal yirtzu lomar, but if the whole tzibur wants to collectively say nekadesh as a congregation, that's fine. Mutter midina, afilu shelo yimashatz biyachad. Even if they say it before the shliach tzibur, and then the shliach tzibur says his paragraph, that's fine. Because according to the Rav Shulchan Aruch, as I suggested before, there are two ways to accomplish tefillah b'tzibur. Either we all say something together, or we have one person leading the charge for all of us. Both of those are called tefillah b'tzibur, and for the Rav Shulchan Aruch, either one is acceptable. Either one is acceptable. Except for certain psukim, where you can't have a leader say the words, where you have to say it yourself, such as Kadosh, 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 and Baruch Kavod Hashem Imekamo. Those are deemed to be so important that you have to say those words together yourself. The other paragraphs, you can have a Shlich Tzibur lead the charge, and that's still called a Tefillah B'Tzibur. But if you as a Tzibur say, no, we're literate, we love to daven, we don't need someone to say it for us, then it's perfectly acceptable for the Tzibur to say collectively, Nekadesh. And that's actually fine, it's perfectly fine. Ach shemikol makom, ein lechatchila lihisnai kein. But the Mishnah Berurah adds, and he's quoting the Rav Shulchan Aruch, that that's not a lichatchila. It's not a lichatchila. We saw from the Aruch HaShulchan, not that way. The Aruch HaShulchan says that's the minhag. By the way, this is one of the important features of distinction between the Aruch HaShulchan and the Mishnah Berurah. If I may generalize, it's not always the case. But as a general rule, the Aruch HaShulchan will defend the minhag on the ground and tell you why it is the correct minhag. And the Mishnah Berurah will tell you what the halacha is and will sometimes ignore the predominant minhag of wherever he happens to live. So the Bir Halacha is telling you, lechatchila, you should be silent. The tzibur should be quiet and should allow the shliach tzibur lechatchila to say it himself. But it is acceptable b'diavad if everyone says it together. He quotes all of the sources, including the Vilna Gaon, that lechatchila they should not chime in. Now in our days, says the Mishnah Berurah, shenagu ha'olam leimor nekadesh hu al pi kisvei ha'ari. So why taka today do all shuls say it? Why do all shuls say it? He says it's not based on the Taz. Now it's based on something else. There's the Magen Avram who quotes the Arizal. And the Arizal said, based on Kabbalah, we're going to see this more thoroughly. It's quoted by Rabbi Kiva Eger as well, surprisingly enough. And he brings Shesovrim Kehataz. Now there's an Ari that says that the Tzibur should say every single word of the Kedusha. And it's based on Kabbalah. According to the Arizal, you should say Lu'umasam Baruch Yomeru, and you should say Yuvadivrei Katshecha Kasuv Leimor. And that's what we base ourselves on, or possibly we base ourselves on the Taz. I am putting forward to you that the Siddur, which publishes it all Chazan or Kahal Shatz, is based not on the minhag of Europe, that is cited both by the Aruch HaShulchan and the Bir Halacha, because it seems like the custom in Europe was to go like the Arizal or like the Taz, that everyone said everything. Everyone said everything. And so why the Sidurim have preserved this format, without qualification, to me is somewhat disturbing based on what we've seen so far. It could be that the publishers of the Siddur feel a responsibility to preserve the primary psak of the Mishnah Berurah, but at the same time, the Mishnah Berurah even acknowledges, he says, there is a minig of the Ari, but still, the Vilna Gaon and all of the other poskim that he's quoted, the Machatzis HaShekel and the Rav Shulchan Aruch, they all hold that lichatchila, you're not supposed to say these things with the shots, but everyone does. Okay.
And so, what about Shabbos?
We haven't seen a distinction. There may be someone who says it, but didn't manage to find it. There may be someone who says that there's taka and afkamina between Shabbos and Chol, but at Misvara, I don't see the chiluk. I don't see the chiluk. It's the Shliach Tzibor saying, I mean, look, the primary communal prayer is the Trisagion, is the Kadosh, 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 is Baruch Kvar Hashem Imakomo, and Yimloch Hashem La'olam. All the other stuff is piyutistic. It's piyutim. It's Imkamo, Yifim Barachamim, Yachonam, Shema Yisrael, Shema Elkeinu Hashem Echad should be recited by the Tzibor. That also by Musaf, but that's it.
So that's where if you don't say Mary, you shouldn't say on Shabbos.
Yeah, unless you see something that makes it. I mean, it could be that I forgot, but I don't remember seeing any distinction between Shabbos and Chol in this regard. If you find something, let me know.
What about the way that we do say it responsibly? We don't really say it with the chassan. Or am I getting this wrong? We don't.
Right. So we saw even the Aruch HaShulchan had pointed out that it's okay even to say it before the shots. It's still called a communal prayer, as long as we're all saying it together. We start it together. Now, remember I told you that there was this question as to whether the Shliach Tzibor should say Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh together with the Tzibor and begin with Az B'Kol or Kevodo Malei Olam, or should he say out loud Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh? This is a suffix that is articulated by the Bir Halacha in this next piece. We're just coming into the middle of it. He says, Umistafakna le'inyan shots. Here's my suffix. He says, the Shliach Tzibor himself, Imhu mechuyev gam kein lomar kadosh ubaruch b'shaveh im hatzibor. On the one hand, we should argue that he should have to say kadosh, kadosh, kadosh together with the tzibor at the same time, and baruch kavod Hashem imekomo. Ki halohu eno motzi es atzum min haklal. After all, he's not excluding himself with what he's just said in the preamble. Let us sanctify God. And if he's saying let us sanctify God together, then he should say kadosh, kadosh, kadosh together with the tzibor. Right? Doesn't that make sense? He says like the ho omer nekadesh ve'ech yomar achar kach shelo ba'asara. So then how could he exclude himself, wait for everyone to finish, and then say it by himself without the tzibor? He says ve'ein lomer kevin dahashatz omed lahotzi rabim yidei chova kashuv chashuv kitzibor. And don't tell me it's because he's going to be motzi everyone else in other parts of Kedusha. Therefore, he counts as a tzibor unto himself, even though he's saying it by himself. He says, Ze'eno. Dahalo Kedusha tzrichu chazal lechol echad me'Hashem omleimor ba'atzmo kadosh u'baruch. He says, that you can't say. You could consider his prayer to be a communal prayer during those parts of Kedusha where he's mandated to say it on behalf of everyone else. But when Chazal said there are certain lines of Kedusha that everyone has to say in order for it to be a communal prayer, i.e. Kadosh, 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 and Baruch Kavod, then his saying of it by himself cannot be considered to be a communal prayer, because if it was, then we wouldn't have to say it. So therefore, why is it, by what right does he have to say Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh by himself? He should have to say it together with the Tzibor. So he says, Ve'efshar, but maybe I'll tell you a limud schus, he says, but possibly like this, you could say the other way. Kevin de ha'omei b'tfila kaimelam b'simin kufdalet siftav d'yishtok v'yachavin l'masha omer shatz kidei lotzeis bazeh. There's another halacha. What if you're in the middle of your silent Shmona Esrei, and the Shliach Tzibor has already started his Chazaras Hashatz? Then you're supposed to be silent when he gets to Kedusha, and listen. So perhaps, because we know that halacha holds true, that there may be someone in the tzibur who's listening to the recitation of Kedusha by the Shliach Tzibur, maybe that's enough of a justification for him to say Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh out loud for those listeners. And that makes his statement of Kedusha, even the Kadosh, 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 like a communal prayer, because he's being motzi others, and therefore it makes it that it's communal even when he's saying it by himself afterwards. Now, look at the last line, because the last line is like the compromise position. So basically the Mishnah Berurah has said, it makes more sense that he should have to say it together with the tzibur, but maybe you could argue that even if he says it after the tzibur, it's still called the communal prayer. And therefore he says like this, V'im maschil hashatz o sha'ar yachid lomar kadosh, kodem shegamru tzibur amirasam, bevadai chashuv ketzibur. The Eliyah Rabbah says that as long as you begin saying kadosh, let's say, you get some kind of indigestion, and everyone started saying kadosh, 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 and you just finished burping, right? So you couldn't start kadosh, kadosh, kadosh with everybody else. Is it for fallen? Did you lose out? As long as the tzibur is still holding by that pasuk, you can start late. As long as a few people in the congregation are still saying Melo chol haaretz, then you can jump in and start kadosh. So therefore, the Bir Halacha suggests as follows: you want to be makayim shnehem, you want to be able to fulfill the imperative that he should say it together with the tzibur, but at the same time allow people who are listening to his kedusha to hear him say kadosh, kadosh, kadosh. This is what he should do. He should say kadosh, kadosh. He should start, wait a couple seconds, and jump into kadosh as the tzibur is finishing kadosh. And that way, the guy who's listening to his kedusha will catch most of the kadosh. He'll hear the tail end, he'll hear the guy starting to yell it as the sound is abating from the audience, and he'll still be considered to be part of saying it with a tzibur because he started it as they're finishing. So it's a fascinating pshara, when you think about it. But according to the Bir Halacha, this is the correct protocol. You don't wait until you can hear a pin drop and then start the gurgling of Kadosh, Kadosh, and all of these, all the melodies that you want, because it makes for a nice longer melody. But you've got to start your Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh as the tzibur is finishing their Melo chol haaretz kevodo. Okay? Now, in the last 5 minutes, let's just take a look at a tshuva from Rabbi Vadia Yosef, Shlita, in his Yavia Omer. Bottom of page 3, source number 13. And Rabbi Ovadia is Malambeit Schus on the current minhag for all of us to say all of Kedusha, every word of Kedusha together. So he writes, first of all, he quotes the Ari from the primary source. He says, the Ari b'shar ha'kavanos kasav v'zel l'sham. This is a direct quote from the Ari, really Reb Chaim Vital, who cites the Ari. And he writes as follows, V'tzarach shetoymar im hashatz kol seder ha'kedusha milah b'milah. It is necessary for you to say word for word every single word of the Kedusha, every single word, min nakdishach v'na'aritzach at siyum kol ha'kedusha kula. Right? This is completely unlike the psak of the Tur of the Beis Yosef and of the Shulchan Aruch. And we had first seen this. We had seen this in the Bir Halacha, but many other Achronim cite the Ari as the basis for everyone saying the Kedusha, milah b'milah, word for word.